The council and the mayor actually set the policy in the city. Our role is to set policy. The city manager's role is to run the day-to-day operations of the city. The city council, mayor and city council hire the city clerk, the city attorney, and the city manager, and all of the other employees are hired through the city manager and the personnel department.
Were you involved in hiring the present city manager?
I was not. I was not on the council at that time. He became city manager about a year before I was elected to the council. But I've been in since 1995. You know, we have yearly evaluations of the city manager, and I've sat in all but one of those for Mike Van Milligan, who's our city manager today. And you know, he has really grown in that position. He's one of the top city managers in the country, as recognized by his peers in the city manager organization. He's one of the top city managers in the world, according to their global organization. So we're very fortunate to have a city manager who knows the job and goes through continuing education courses to always be updated on the latest. The process, you know, is not unlike the hiring of a CEO in a company. You know, you have requests for resumes. There's a job description that is sent out, and then you get resumes. And there was a core group of people that winnowed those down to, I don't remember what the number was, but there was usually a top 5 or 6, and then you take those folks, you bring them in for interviews with, you know, the strategic players in the community, your finance departments, HR, you name it, all the areas that they would cover. And then you narrow it down even further. I'm not sure if the city council at the time or the mayor was a part of that process, but certainly that would you know, be one way of doing it, because the mayor and council actually do hire the city manager, so I would think they would be a part of that, the final process, you know, making that selection. And in fact, they do make the final selection, but after a lot of input and a very extensive process, they arrive at, you know, they actually vote on who they would like as their city manager.
With the city council and mayor making that selection, did they earlier bring in other people from your city to be part of that selection committee?
That is not uncommon. I really don't recall whether that happened at that time. I know if it happened today, with the way that we operate today and the tremendous partnerships that we have in this community, that there would be players, you know, from our Greater Dubuque Development Corporation, our economic development nonprofit, possibly the chamber. We would certainly open it up to a lot of eyes, you know, so we could get that input. That's really how you make your best decision. The more people you can have looking at those resumes and those candidates, you know, the better process it is.
And as you said, you did have a requirement, a list of goals and requirements for the city manager?
Well, there are certain jobs, you know, the city manager is responsible for. You know, he's got to be, he's got to know finance, you know, personnel issues. Our city manager gets involved in everything. I mean, he makes sure that he's up to date on all the engineering that's going on, the long-range planning, so that he has an overall picture of how the city operates, and he actually manages those departments. So he's got to be responsible and you know, what goes on within those departments. And we're very fortunate that our city manager does an excellent job at that.
So that would include economic development, perhaps, and labor negotiations?
Economic development, labor negotiations. You know, one thing that I learned early on, you know, and it was in discussion with the city manager, is he manages the everyday workings of the city. The city council and mayor set the policy. We set the priorities every year that he bases his budget on for the next 18 months. So, you know, I learned very, very early on that, you know, I don't go to managers within the city and ask them questions of a nature that would undermine the management of the city manager. That's his job. If I have questions of those managers, I'll go through the city manager. He'll find out the information. I can certainly talk to them about how things operate or things like that, but usually it's through the city manager, and he oversees everyone that operates those services for the city.
You mentioned that 5 or 6 years ago, the voters made a big decision.
Well, I think they did.
You mentioned
There were two council members, myself and another, who were running for city council, and we were kind of at different ends of the spectrum. I was looking at sustainability and a long-range vision for the city, an inclusive city, a friendly, a welcoming city, and I think there were some other avenues that possibly could have been pursued, had my opponent won. But I also, when I was elected, there were 3 other council seats that were open, and all 3 of those new folks that were running were elected. And they all, I think, shared the vision that I had. So really, I think it was the community decided, that we wanted to go forward down a new path of inclusiveness and a progressive community, and look to the future, what kind of community we were going to be leaving for our children and our grandchildren. And really that has been a driving force, over the last 5 years, why Dubuque has gained national notoriety for our sustainability efforts and our job creation efforts. The businesses that we've attracted to this community, I think, are all based on visioning and that progressive visioning in our sustainable community.
So I assume then that the aldermen bought into the experience so far, and also the voters.
We have had tremendous feedback from citizens, on the direction that the city has been taking. The vision that we have. Our sustainability program is recognized nationally and internationally. We were selected by IBM to be the first smarter, sustainable city in the country under 200,000. They are actually working with us on a smarter city initiative with water and gas and oil and vehicle miles traveled, and they're going to get into healthcare. So we're going to have a community that really is going to be set apart from the rest of the country initially. And all of that has been driven by our sustainability initiative and our very strong public-private partnerships. We realize nothing happens in this city of a positive nature and of any scale without many people at the table. Partnership is what it's all about, and that's really been the secret that we've tried to share with other communities when they ask us, how are you getting so much done? It's because everyone comes to the table and works together for common goals.
You mentioned that many cities have come to you to look over what you're doing and figure out how.
They have. St. Cloud, Minnesota was just here with 40-some people, spent a day and a half, and went through every aspect of our community, from economic development to tourism, our health programs, our housing, everything. And just to find out how we brought all these working pieces together to create this community that really is recognized around the country as one of the progressive hubs, in the country. And we try to share with them, everything that we've done. And again, it goes back to people working together with a common vision and common goals. And when we won the All-America City Award in 2007, one of the participants, Rusty Knight, who's the president of Mercy Health Center, said, the secret to this community is it's not who has the good idea or the great idea, it's that nobody takes credit for it. Everybody works together to make that idea a reality, and nobody takes credit. The Eagles are checked at the door And you know, everything is about the future vision of the community and how are we going to get there together to make this a better community for our children and grandchildren.